Good morning, everyone. It's good to be together. Please, let's rise in body or spirit and sing, well, number 1020 in the hymnal that's in nobody's hands. But there will be slides. Whoa, ya, ya. You singer and educator, you say Marie Barnwell, used this song in the 1970s. Oh, and we're going to do it now. We're going to do it right now. There'll be a slide. We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will.
Good morning. And welcome to the Mount Diablo Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm the Reverend Leslie Takahashi, and my pronouns are she and her, and I'm so glad to see so many of you. I thought that you would be discouraged. Instead, we're having an amazing outerwear fashion show today. I was ready. I had my beanie to bring, my sparkle beanie, if we needed it. If we need it later, I have it ready. So thank you all for your intrepidness and perseverance. And I want to also say a special shout out to Eric Shapove, who ran around like an amazing person today to get all these space heaters set up. So thank you. I want to also give a special welcome to those who are visiting us for the first or second time, and those who might be back after a long absence, and we have a couple of those folks today as well. We're so grateful that you chose to spend part of your Sunday with us, and we hope you'll join us today in the Borton Hall afterwards to say hello and stay for lunch, because we have our youth lunch this today, and it will be supporting our youth and their efforts to go to our General Assembly in June. So we want to also mention that today is the first day of our Worthy Now Holiday Notes program, and we hope that you will go to the Justice table and look and learn more about how we can spread some cheer in this holiday season. And we also have our harvest meal coming up. It'll be the Friday of the holiday weekend later this month, which is very late this month. It's the last weekend of the month. And we would really love to have as many of you as possible participate, either and or by volunteering and attending. And also for those who may not be able to be with us in person, Reverend Rodney wanted to be sure to have me say that we do still have a delivery option if you'd like to have a meal delivered to you. So let's sign up and spread the joy of community. Two other quick things. One is that we will have a book read next week looking at Heather Cox Richardson, Democracy Awakening, which we mentioned a couple weeks ago. And if you haven't read the whole book, it's really okay. You can get it on the Kobo app if you want to. I just mentioned that for what it's worth, if you want to get it quickly. And finally, I'll say these are difficult times, and many of us are carrying a lot. So if you are in need of a listening ear, we do have our pastoral visitors here today, and they always are standing with us when we drop the stones during the offertory. And please feel free to reach out to them or to any of us on the ministerial staff as well. Welcome. We're glad that we are together.
Good morning. My name is Kevin Shea. My pronouns are he, him, and his, and I'm a member of your Board of Trustees. Welcome to the service. We begin our services by reading our mission together. We bring to life our Unitarian Universalist values as we seek truth and work for justice, nurture compassion and courage, reach out to each other and to our larger community of faith, bridge divisions that wound the human family, transform ourselves and our world. We are glad to see all of you. A special welcome for our children and families. A fidget table for kids and a comfort room with sound for those visiting with the littlest ones is in the back. If you're with us in person, please feel to join us in the Borton Hall after service to meet old friends and meet someone new. If you're joining us online, you can meet people in the virtual coffee hour via Zoom. In addition, we are also serving lunch today, and then after that, at 12:30, we have a forum with important information for members. And please remember that the way to make connections here is to connect on Sunday and beyond. Our weekly email and Beacon newsletter are good ways to track the many, many ways to gather together and connect here as pictures. Well, I don't know if we have pictures at the beginning of the service, but that's okay. And finally, this is the last day for bidding for Bid for Love. It is available online, and bidding closes tonight. It has been a great success with all of your support. Thank you, and it's good to be together.
Okay, this is the time that we exchange greetings, and really, the only thing we can do today is, well, two things. One is watch for space heaters and don't knock into them. And number two is warm welcomes to each other. Thank you.
like to invite you to join me in singing Be Gentle by Leah Morris. Be gentle and kind with your sensitive heart. Remember to let it shine. And when you fall down, know that's not who you are. You can rise up singing. Be gentle and kind with your sensitive heart. Remember to let it shine. And when you fall down, know that's not who you are. You can rise up singing. Thank you.
We're going to do something a little different for our chalice lighting today. We're going to say all these words in a minute in unison. And I'm going to say about these words, we're really very careful here to give attribution. But the thing is, we don't actually know who said this. We used to think it was our Unitarian ancestor, Francis de Vide, but that's been disproved. So whoever said it, as our issue of the UU World said, it really doesn't matter, but it's something that's still important to us. So let's say it together in unison. We don't have to think alike to love alike.
Good morning. So I get to do the Time for All Ages today, so bear with me. Because of course, I forgot a prop. So we're really gonna have to use some imagination and help. But I'm gonna talk to y'all about an organization called the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, UUSC. Show your hands if you know about this committee. This is our Unitarian Universalist nonprofit organization that really does a great job in engaging our values in the global world. And they have had a program for the past 50 years called Guest at Your Table. Now, I'll show your hands if you know Guest at Your Table. Little hint, it happens every year here. And there's always these little boxes that we send home with you, so you can put your dollars and coins in here and then bring them back so that your financial help will help one of 4 organizations that are the guests at your table. And I think the tech deck has a short video for us to learn more about who the recipients are this year.
Welcome to Guests at Your Table. We invite you to take a seat and meet the unstoppable organizations leading the protection of human rights and social justice around the world. First, we welcome Joe Jickham, an organization from the Marshall Islands playing a key role in Pacific youth climate engagement. For example, this past year, Joe Jickham's youth staff, who are all under 25 years old, led and produced the National Adaptation Plan. The plan is a major climate policy document that includes strategies to help adapt to the effects of climate change over the next 50 to 100 years. The plan is backed by research. Through surveys, outreach, interviews, and even art, the youth coordinators gather the data needed to make informed policy recommendations for generations to come. Next, we welcome the Pink Haven Coalition. We have seen the legislative, social, and judicial environment in the United States growing increasingly hostile and fascist. In response, Pink Haven works together to create networks of safety and direct support for trans beloveds and their families to flee unsafe states, access gender-affirming health care, or stay as safe as possible where they are. Our next guest is Queer Spit. Over the last year, the organization helped over 1,030 people of the LGBTQ+ and BIPOC communities of Ukraine and neighboring countries to safety in response to Russia's full-scale invasion. Queers Fit helps to build legal cases, provide asylum consultations, support people to plan their migration, and provide humanitarian aid. For example, last year, with the help of Queers Fit, a queer couple was able to escape Kyiv and move to Canada, where they got married. Our last guest is the Haitian Bridge Alliance. The Haitian Bridge Alliance advocates for fair and humane immigration policies and provides people in migration with humanitarian, legal, and social services with a particular focus on Black people, the Haitian community, women and girls, LGBTQIA+ individuals, and survivors of torture and other human rights abuses. This year, the organization is working with UUSC to research the disparate treatment of Black asylum seekers within the U.S. immigration system. The project will provide a deep understanding of issues such as detention length, conditions in detention centers, family separation, and experiences during credible fear interviews. UUSC remains in firm solidarity with all of our partnering organizations, and we can't wait for you to learn more about our esteemed guests through our Guests at Your Table.
Are the guests that will be at your table this year while we are raising funds for them. Who can yell out one of our UU values that you think you just saw in action there? So what is one of our values that you think? Human rights, okay. What about human rights? Anyone else? Yell it out. Justice. Are we at, one of the things that struck me is 3 of those guests are organizations that operate within the United States, not just globally. That's a little interesting to me. Do you think we're connected to those organizations? Interconnectedness, yeah. So I need your help to kind of see how we are all connected. So how about you want to rise in body or spirit, kids? I need your help. In body. I'm going to toss this ball of yarn over. Oh, sorry. I meant to toss it, not throw it. Please toss it, don't throw it. And grab a hold of a piece, and then pick someone else to pass the yarn to. And just keep doing that until everybody has a piece of yarn, please. Just make sure you keep a hold of a piece of yarn. Pass it around. What are we doing here? Yeah, we're creating a little web, right? Keep passing. Great. Keep going. Excellent. Keep going over to the other side, maybe. And for those of you holding on, maybe just kind of flick the string here and see what happens to it. Yeah, it's kind of, you can feel it, right, when someone else does it. So this you can think of as a live action version of our interconnectedness, the web that keeps us all touching one another and connected. And that is exactly what the UUSC does. So this year, please drop by the Justice table. There will be a pyramid of boxes, and you can take a box home and start collecting funds for the organizations we just learned about. You want to end it for us, Prince? Awesome. And now I'd like to invite everyone to join us in singing our children to their programs today.
May the kindness Good morning, everyone. My name is Casey Gardner. My pronouns are she and her, and they and them. So I think that everyone has a favorite children's story. When I was younger, my favorite stories were actually the Aesop's fables. You might know a few. The Tortoise and the Hare, The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Many are familiar, if not for their plots, then at least a little bit for their moral meanings. Don't imply danger unless there is danger, or don't let hubris get the best of you. Now, my favorite Aesop's fable was actually The Mouse and the Lion. If you're familiar, this is a story about how a lion lets a mouse go free. Later, the mouse returns to free the lion from a hunter's trap. This is a story about reciprocity, and the teaching is meant to be, if someone helps us, it is only fair to help them in return. Now, as a child, I think I saw myself in the mouse, someone who was committed to doing the right thing, even when it was scary. I wanted to be brave and selfless and able to see the good in what I was afraid of, because trust is a two-way street. In that way, this is a good story. And as an adult, I still told myself this story, but as I got older, I no longer saw myself as the mouse. I saw myself as the lion, committed to showing forgiveness and compassion without expectations of reciprocity. This was a good story, too. It taught me humility and grace. These types of stories are powerful. They follow us throughout our lives, but in this story, there also arises a dichotomy. We help because we are kind, or we help because we are giving back. This is not a bad thing. Dichotomies do exist in life, and if we can find the nuances in them, we can avoid this black or white thinking that one can only be one thing or another. But in order to talk about the true power of stories, I actually want to turn to some psychology. Because after all, our minds are the places that most of these stories exist. Maslow, he's the same guy who's known for that hierarchy of needs stuff, has a theory called the law of the instrument. The law of the instrument is most simply described as this: if all you ever have is a hammer, all anything else can be is a nail. Or more broadly, we see the world most through the tools we have to see the world through. And most of these tools are the stories we are told and the stories we tell. You might have heard some of these, like this one. Adam and Eve lived in the Garden of Eden, and Eve's thirst for knowledge is the reason we have sin. Or this one. You must never sin, even though Jesus has already forgiven your sins, so you should actually probably be fine. Or these ones. I will never be good enough. The world is out to get me. I am unlovable. I am powerless. I am wrong. I am bad. I'm undeserving. I'm stupid. I'm a failure. I'm a mistake. And honestly, these types of stories are probably the most harmful. Because unlike children's stories, which usually attempt to promote positive lessons, if the only instruments we give ourselves in the stories we tell are those that promote shame and doubt, all we will ever become is ashamed and self-doubting, even when confronted with love, compassion, and care. Now, most likely, we did not create these stories. Many of us were actually given to us as children, or maybe through trauma, disappointment, or loss. But these stories are so often self-reinforcing. If we believe we are a failure, every time we don't achieve our goals, this becomes a story about how we have failed, or maybe even how others have caused us to fail. But here's the thing. Often these are not stories of failure. These are stories of growth, of learning, of finding ourselves. The stories we tell ourselves about what is unchangeable are actually stories that direct us towards what we can change and where we should go to find the types of affirmation we seek. These are stories that can give us opportunities to create new stories, ones in which we're not predestined to keep hammering the same nail, expecting different results. But if we keep telling the same stories, we deprive ourselves of new understandings.
Now, before I get all self-helpy here and start telling you to see the world through new eyes, I also want to acknowledge that changing your perspective is hard. It usually is something that's based on years or lifetimes of narratives reinforced and eventually cemented into beliefs, because we are all guilty of holding some deeply biological hammers. Now, two of these hammers, according to psychology, again, are one, confirmation biases, and two, what we call fundamental attribution error. These are some pretty ingrained human behaviors that not only drive us to confirm what we already believe, but to attribute our beliefs about behavior to something inherent in individuals. For example, the story says people don't accomplish a task because they are lazy or unqualified. A relationship doesn't work out because either we messed up or they messed up. If someone gets mad or hurts another person's feelings, it's because they are mean and cruel. Someone makes a mistake, it's because they are careless or bigoted or uneducated. Here's a big one. If someone behaves differently than we do, it's because they don't share our values, they aren't on our side, or they just aren't willing to participate in exchanges of empathy, much like the mouse and the lion. It's easy to lean into the stories we know, to use them to organize the world into neat little boxes, but simply put, the world doesn't work this way. All people are messy and complicated, and the more stories we tell that don't make space for this truth are destined to turn people into nails that need to be hammered. I tell people this sometimes, and it usually blows their minds a little bit. People tend to disagree with me. I believe that more often than not, when people make the choices they make, they honestly believe they are doing the right thing. In fact, if you ask them, very few walk the world attempting to cause harm. And while they do cause harm, it's often because they fully believe that they are doing the best or maybe the least bad thing. I think many of us see ourselves in the story of the mouse and the lion. We would help the little guy, and we would want to return that help to anyone who does the same. But what about those who don't grow up with these types of stories? What if the dichotomies they know best are not those of interdependence, but of good and evil, of those who help and those who hurt? Stories of deep internalized hatred or of shame as a corrective tool. And what if we too are capable of telling ourselves these stories? Because we're trained to see everyone as needing to be more understanding, even when we ourselves refuse to be understanding. As an English teacher, this is gonna sound extremely cliche, but there's psychology to back it up too, so here's where I stand. I think the only way to combat the stories we tell ourselves is to hear the stories that other people tell themselves about themselves. Unlike the old adage, these words, oddly, can sometimes speak even louder than actions. Now, I'm definitely not suggesting we open ourselves to harmful narratives. We do need to tell ourselves stories that enforce self-love and self-worth, especially in times when our personhood is under attack. Some people are lions. When they look a little too hungry, perhaps we're better off letting them stay in the traps they've found themselves in, even if they've previously shown us compassion. Maybe this is not a good story in those circumstances. However, it's also Aesop that taught me this is ultimately not an us and them world. This is a world full of creatures navigating the best way they know how, hopefully learning and growing through it. Maybe that is a story worth telling again. So come, let us share our stories and maybe even question ours a little bit together.
Excuse me. Please rise in body or spirit for this song in the folk tradition that came to Carisha Longacre of Mamuse in a dream. It's called We Shall Be Known. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now, it is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now, it is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
Thank you, Laura and Casey. The ministry team has decided that we are going to support our middle school group because we don't have anyone teaching that group consistently. So you'll see a lot of us not here during the service so that we can do that. So Casey, I'm going to ask if you'd come down and light candles for me. We are committed to having a space for our middle school folks. This is the time in our service when we take into the collective heart of this congregation those joys and sorrows that are too great to hold alone. And I invite those who have written in our book or who sent in their joys and sorrows to come forward at this time. And I'm asking Casey to light the first candle this morning for, Ronna Miller-Owen, who's online for us today, is requesting it. Ronna says, I would like everyone to know that my mother, Lolly Miller-Branda, is under hospice care. She is currently on medication to ease her suffering and is sleeping. Tomorrow we decide if we continue hospice here at the hospital or at Brun's house, and we ask that you keep all of our family in your prayers. So we're thinking about Lolly and about Ronna and her sisters in this difficult time. I'm going to invite Laura Zucker to light a candle, if you don't mind. Thank you. And Laura writes, thank you for all I've received to help me be what I need to be, and for all the times I haven't been there, please forgive me. Thank you, Laura. And I'm asking Casey to light a candle for our amazing congregational administrator, Jen Marsh. Jen had surgery on Wednesday, and it went as they had hoped and predicted, and Jen is now recovering. She will not be back at work until 2025, and so we know that we are all sending great love to Jen in this time. Bob Maxwell is lighting a candle, and he says, Marcia completed her 70th trip around the sun last Tuesday. A good time was had by all. Nancy White is lighting a candle of joy, celebrating her 82nd birthday tomorrow. And I invite Casey to light 2 final candles. One holds those joys and sorrows that remain in the sanctuary of our hearts today. And the second is for our planet and our world and all that we hold within our nation at this time. Thank you.
So please rise in body or spirit for a little more music, a little more singing. More singing is always the answer. Comfort me during a time when composer Mimi Bornstein-Doble was feeling unsettled and angry. The words and music of this hymn came to her, bringing her peace. Number 1002 in the hymnal that is not in your hands. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Speak for me, speak for me, speak for me, speak for me, oh my soul. Speak for me, speak for me, speak for me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul.
Friends, please join me in a spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life and love, we are here today as we are, in our wholeness, imperfect, searching, often weighed down by the world. We carry the voices of doubt and comparison, the pressures to be more, do more, or to become someone other than our true selves. In this moment, may we find the courage to pause, to breathe deeply, to remember that we are enough, not because of what we accomplish, not because of how we measure up to others, but simply because we are here, alive, unique, and worthy of love. Help us to release the burdens we were never meant to carry, the need to prove ourselves, the fear of being unworthy, the shame that tells us that we're not good enough. May we embrace the beautiful, messy, and perfectly imperfect selves we bring to this life. May we recognize our inherent worth, no matter what the world may say. And may we live from that truth, honoring our own journeys and extending that same radical acceptance to others. Spirit of life, remind us that we belong to ourselves, to each other, and to the sacred web of existence. May our hearts be lighter, with renewed hope, ready to live authentically and unapologetically as we are. Blessed be. Amen.
There was a child named Bernadette. I heard the story long ago. She saw the Queen of Heaven once, kept the vision in her soul. No one believed what she had seen. No one believed what she heard. That there were sorrows to be healed. And mercy, mercy in this world. So many hearts I find broke like yours and mine, torn by what we've done and can't undo. I just wanna hold you. Come on, let me hold you, like Bernadette would do. We've been around, we fall, we fly. We mostly fall, we mostly run. But every now and then we try to mend the damage that we've done. Tonight, I just can't rest. I've got this joy here inside my breast. To think that I did not forget that child, that song of Bernadette. So many hearts I find, hearts like yours and mine, torn by what we've done and can't undo. I just wanna hold you. Won't you let me hold you, like Bernadette would do? Like Bernadette would do.
Good morning. I'm Mark Chase. I'm a member of your Board of Trustees, and my pronouns are he and him.
These past few weeks, I'm sure that a lot of us who are in the workforce were asked by our employers to complete the open enrollment process for our benefits for 2025. As I reviewed my various options, my gaze lingered over my biweekly contribution to my 401k. If one thinks about a 401k plan, a 403b plan, a Roth IRA, college savings account, these all serve the same purpose. We are contributing funds to these accounts as an investment in our futures and in the futures of our loved ones. We carefully tuck away hard-earned funds while saying prayers to the universe that they may grow and multiply to protect and secure our futures. Similarly, I would argue that we should consider our donations to this church in the same vein. The donations that you make week after week, year after year, ensure that the lights and the heat stay on, that our staff get paid, and that the mission of our church is nurtured and supported. Since 1959, this church has been a beacon of hope, light, and decency, nurturing compassion and courage. We are all fortunate to call this wonderful community our spiritual home, and homes require attention, maintenance, and dedication to their upkeep. Please consider how you might give back to our community. If you feel moved to make a financial donation and you're joining us online, please click on the yellow Give Now button at the upper left-hand corner of our homepage. I invite the ushers forth to graciously receive your offerings. Please join me in the dedication of our offering. The words will be found on the screen. To the work of this community in transforming ourselves and our world, we dedicate ourselves and our offerings.
Good morning. You're all looking kind of cozy out there. And it's really good to have you with us, both in all the ways. I'm actually going to begin with a reading, and I'm going to be honest. I'm beginning with this reading, which I don't usually do, because it was just a real week, and I couldn't quite figure out how to get this into the sermon. So it's here on the outside of the sermon, but it was important. And these are the words of Adrienne Marie Brown from her book, "We Will Not Cancel Us and Other Dreams of Transformative Justice." Knee-jerk call-outs say, those who caused harm or mess up or disagree with us cannot change and cannot belong. They must be eradicated. The bad things in the world cannot change. We must disappear the bad until there's only the good left. But one layer under that, what I hear is, we cannot change. We do not believe we can create compelling pathways from being harm doers to being healed to growing. We do not believe we can hold the complexity of a gray situation. We do not believe in our own complexity. We do not believe we can navigate conflict and struggle in principled ways. We can only handle binary thinking, good, bad, innocent, guilty, angel, abuser, black, white, etc. The words of Adrienne Marie Brown. Suitcases and I do not love one another. And I was very aware of this on the morning recently at the end of October when I got off a transatlantic flight to London and took my bags on the underground to reach a church service on the far side of the city. I had been up for many hours, and my luggage and I just weren't loving each other as I lugged it over the cobblestone streets. I had done research, and I had known not to have anything with wheels or depend on anything with wheels. However, carrying all that stuff wasn't all that much fun either. But I made it to worship. The chapel was gorgeous and centuries older than any worship space in our faith which I'd ever been in before, and there was a small smattering of people spread across the small cluster of chairs. I wasn't surprised. I've heard for many years about the decline of our faith in the UK, and the following morning I took another train and then a bus to the village of Great Hucklow, where the Unitarians had first established a home for disabled soldiers, which became a camp for children, which is still active, for kids who might otherwise never see the countryside in the scope of their days. And here I attended the meeting of the Ministerial Fellowship, the gathering of Unitarian and Free Church ministers from around the United Kingdom. They welcomed me into their circle, which was not large, as a representative from the UU Ministers Association, and as a U.S. colleague who had served among them for a number of years warned me. They wished me to be careful, not to be tempted into the refrain of, in the U.S., we do this, because the resources are so much more limited in their congregations. So I admit it. I had a story in my head about what was happening, and on the first night, my counterpart, the president of the Ministerial Fellowship, sort of rolled his eyes at me, allowing how they knew they were used as a cautionary tale in the U.S. Don't let happen to you what happened to us in the U.K. And I knew I was guilty as charged and got very quiet. So for the next 2 days, I listened, and I volunteered to be the flip chart scribe so that I could listen more carefully. They were doing a planning process, and I walked every morning by the beautiful Unitarian stone chapel where services are now held for a small handful of people who gather only once a month. By the last day, when I made my report to them, I was able to aim it somewhat in areas that I had collected from their interests. And I also had a list of ideas that I had collected from their experimentations as communities centered around faith and values in a very secular culture, conditions they faced just a few decades before we did. My quiet, my decision to listen for different stories had left room for curiosity and respect, and in that space I saw that my UK colleagues were not just sitting around waiting for their demise. They were very actively, very excitedly in this planning process, working to figure out how they could best serve the needs of the people in their communities. So we know how this is, how we tell ourselves stories that limit our own lives. And in this time, I think it's particularly important that we think about this. We know how others tell stories about us, which affect how we feel. And we know that this can happen for whole groups of people, as we know in this very polarized time we're living in. Sometimes it's hard to hear another story, especially for those of us who've had to fight so hard to hear our own true voice. Some of us have worked so hard at that, and others of us feel very protective of protecting that right, especially in these times. And I remember, and many of you are remembering because you've been speaking to me about it, about what happened in 2016 when we faced somewhat similar circumstances, perhaps not as extreme, and the ways that we found ourselves in conflict with people that we loved, and the ways that we found ourselves in conflict with each other. It seems to make sense that we are wired, perhaps within our reptilian brains, to be defensive, especially when we see the other side as a threat, and increasingly we do. Since 2010, the researchers say, when the use of digital devices and social media began to increase exponentially, the divide grew very fast, especially in the area of political polarization. The Listen First Project offers a long list of disturbing numbers from a range of sources, including these. From the AP, 87% say political polarization is a threat to America. 51% from the PRRI, 51%, including 55% of independents and 85% of Democrats, say that the Republican Party has been taken over by racists. From PRRI, 44%, including 84% of Republicans and 47% of independents, say the Democratic Party has been taken over by socialists. The defensiveness and fear that we have about one another is reinforced by the media business models that we now have, which make their profits by sensationalizing the news. And I think of this as the Weather Channel phenomenon. And it's been around for a while, actually. I remember going on a Christmas trip as an adult with my parents, and we were supposed to go to dinner, and they said, no, we can't go. I said, why not? We have a reservation. They said, oh, we have to wait for the Gulf Stream report. I was like, really? Okay, so there you go. They were so convinced that they could not live without watching the Gulf Stream report. And political news now is worse in its 24-hour doses. While a truth may be involved, and that truth itself may not be bad. Some people may be very happy that the Democratic Party is embracing more socialism, for example. By the time it's amplified to give it a new twist, it becomes a cause for great paralyzing fear, which causes more fear from the other side, and then the reality begins to be diminished by the fear. And also diminished is our ability to relate to one another as people who would profit from our division wish us to be. This is a time when, like the song of Bernadette, we still want to hear that longing for deeper connection. This drama fuels anger, and then, mixed with our cultural myths, can become paralyzing. And there are other stories, too, that are out there in the stratosphere that make this all very complicated, such as the myth of American exceptionalism in that our nation, which, by the way, is not all of America, as our neighbors on both sides will tell us, that this nation has always been a force for good and can only be a force for good. And that can make us very vulnerable when the evidence, such as that which we got last week, is so overwhelming to the contrary. We have so many of these stories that we tell ourselves that we aren't smart enough, that we are smarter than everyone else, that we aren't good enough, or that we are the only one good enough, and so must isolate ourselves. Just like the list of things that Casey shared with us, we have so many of these stories that bad things happen for a reason, that bad things happen because we need to be punished, that there is always a simple answer, a one-step answer to the challenges before us, that aging is a defeat, that young people who are struggling are just lazy, that having fewer economic resources is a judgment, that having more economic resources is a curse, that we are infallible, that we are the strongest democracy in the world. So many of these stories. Now, Adrienne Marie Brown points out another myth, and one she says is perhaps at the root of so many of these others, and that is our belief that we live in a world of scarcity, when in fact, she says, we live in a world of abundance. But our belief in scarcity leads to many things, one of them being what her friend Terry Marshall calls a crisis of imagination. So what do? This is a time when we cannot compromise our values, and nothing that we're talking about today about our stories has to do with compromising our core values. Yet so many are concerned about how they're going to go on, not only in the bigger frame, but also how they're going to have that holiday meal with the person who voted for the person who will be coming into office in January, and what we can do in the long term to reverse this polarization. I need to say, going back to those myths, that there is no simple single answer. Some of us may choose not to have that contact as a boundary to protect our own well-being, and others may go ahead and make it clear that what topics are off limits. Tanya Israel, who holds many identities, including being Asian, Jewish, and bisexual, works in the dreaded field of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And she wrote an award-winning book called Breaking Out of Our Bubble. She says she hears 4 main reasons why people don't want to talk, who want to talk to people with different views from theirs. The first is they may have a relationship they value, that they want to continue even though there are ideological differences. They may want to heal to convince the other person of their position. They may want just to close the division. They may really lack any understanding of the other perspective and really want to find out how someone could really believe this. But no matter what the reason, she said, the way to approach it is pretty much the same. It begins with the willingness to listen and what she calls intellectual humility, which involves openness, respect, flexibility, curiosity, tolerating ambiguity, and welcoming new ideas. Share your story, she says, not just stats and slogans. My friends, we have been through a lot in these last 2 weeks. And I know some of these ideas may make you bristle. They can make me bristle. When we're feeling vulnerable, we want people to do what we say when we say it. We're afraid of fear-based compromise of values. And I want to say very clearly that while I believe that we can compromise on some things, I absolutely do not believe that we can compromise on our values about the worth of all people and about how much we are interdependent with one another. We cannot compromise on protecting people's basic right to safety. Everybody deserves the safety of their story, and we will be called in the days to come to help protect that. Everybody deserves to be themselves as they are, and if that story threatens someone else, that is not the fault of the storyteller. I want to say this very strongly because I believe it with all my heart. just as I'm clear that I wish more people were still Unitarians in the UK, it doesn't mean that my way of asking for that makes sense. In our relationships, we need to be more imaginative. Adrienne Marie Brown says, I will not be perfect, I will keep learning, she says. I will also not be silent, I will keep learning. And she says we need to begin to think about a transformational justice rather than just rearranging those proverbial deck chairs on a sinking ship. Now, my UK colleagues had their own stories as well about us. And in my first 2 nights, as I sat at the tables, they were joking in a kind of sideways way about the stupidity of the US and did not hesitate to do it in front of me. And there were a few others from the US as well. They got a certain satisfaction from the story about a nation with so much arrogance that had somehow unwittingly allowed the forces of authoritarianism and anti-democracy to prevail. Yet on the second morning, I led a brief worship for them. And at the very end, as I was saying the closing words, I teared up when I asked them to hold all of us in this country in their thoughts, for the election was upcoming. And after that, they heard this story in a different way. A couple hours later, one of them came to me and asked if it would be all right if a group of them held a prayer circle for the United States and the election. And so I went and sat with them that night, listening to their wishes and their hopes, which were very heartfelt for us. And on the day of the election, when we were all in vigil here in the sanctuary, one of the ministers, young ministers from Wales, texted me a picture of their chapel with one of the small plastic votives that said UUMA that I had given to them in that service, nestled there amid the beautiful pillar candles on their very traditional chapel altar. We don't need to change our stories. We might need to tell them more. Next Saturday, some of us will read a little bit about Heather Cox Richardson's Democracy Awakening, and we'll start thinking about our historic root causes as well. We will be known by the company we keep, and we need to be strong enough to keep company with one another, no matter what comes, not by destroying each other or subjecting one another to some kind of false purity test, and also not by tolerating things that cause us harm without telling people that that is true, so that we can all keep growing and learning. Like the child Bernadette, we may have a dream that is too ethereal for this world, and yet we are the bearers of the seeds of that belief that humans can honor one another and live in a culture of abundance and mutual aid. We do not know a perfect recipe. Many of us who are not the people who are most at risk and who will be next January may need to try some things that are very bold because others of us cannot. And as Tanya Israel pointed out, just because you can have a conversation doesn't mean that it's a mandate, and not all of us should feel that we have to have all the conversations. Yet maybe some of us should. Not because we want to challenge our values or our positions, but because we want to honor them, and we want to continue to let them not be overshadowed by fears or let them be reduced to memes. If in a world in which we cannot necessarily count on legal recourse or the rule of law, what we have is imagination and the willingness to work way outside our comfort zone and to be curious about things such as why some would find it more comforting to believe that the government is controlling the weather than to believe that there are changes that we could actually help mitigate. Why is that? We should ask. We need to share our stories. Our stories matter and we matter, our values matter, and being curious and imaginative about how we express them may matter more than it ever has. To be in dialogue is not about saying that what we have worked out is wrong or right. It's about finding another path when roads such as the ones we have known so well and traveled so well to expand the recognition of the human family may not be as available to us in the future. These are the words of Adrienne Marie Brown. She says, "We live in this abundant world, And then we are told there's scarcity, and because of that scarcity, we have to fight one another. How do we get a right relationship of change that allows us to harness it towards community, towards liberation, and towards justice? What I ask is, how do we know that those who share our public life for private gain will not get their way, which is to want us to be divided, for it is in their interest? Instead, let us be courageous and curious and bold and open to new ideas, and let that be another form of resistance.
Time to rise in body or spirit. Number 128, for all that is our lives. For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift, which we are called to use to meet the common good. And make our own days glad. For all live with the serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for sorrow we must bear, for failures, pain, and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift, which we are called to use to build the common good. And make our own days glad.
And I'll ask Casey to extinguish the chalice with these words from Adrienne Marie Brown. Movements tend to become the practice ground for what we are healing towards and co-creating. Together, we are responsible for embodying what we are inviting our people into. We need people within our movements, all socialized into and by unjust systems, to be on a liberator's path, not already free, but practicing freedom every day. So let us go forward from this place, not only ambassadors of peace, but also as ambassadors of a greater freedom that we hold in sanctuary here in our hearts.